Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cultured Pull List. We are now on episode 23, and we're back from a week hiatus. And this week, we're going to be covering the Hit Girl miniseries, also known as the Dave Lizewski Years Volume 2. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. We are your hosts, Mike and Luke, and we have our own dedicated channel now.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty big update. That's why we took a week off last week just to kind of get things settled with that. We also have our own Instagram and I believe other social media eventually at this point. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. Check us out on Instagram. It's just the Cultured Pull List. So yeah, but let's get into our story today. So, this is technically the second, it's
Yeah.
basically a sequel to the original Kick Ass.
Hmm.
It focuses more on Hit Girl, but it is very much a sequel to the original,
Right.
which we did cover a few weeks back. So, well, I guess it was actually 10 episodes ago. So, but,
Two and a half months ago.
yeah, almost. Yeah. So, yeah, so check out that episode if you haven't. But basically, just like a quick recap of the ending is, the main guy, like Genevani or whatever, the main gangster guy gets killed by Hit Girl and Kick Ass, and his son, Red Mist, Chris. We're not really sure what happens to him, but he escapes,
Hmm.
and Mindy ends up. Oh yeah, what we do learn at the end is that Big Daddy was lying about his origin the whole time, and Mindy's mom didn't actually die, so she's still alive. So Mindy goes to live with her mom after Big Daddy is killed, and her mom's, well, I guess her stepdad,
Right.
and then Dave just obviously goes back with his dad. So that's pretty much all you need to know. If you want to get like a full recap, watch our other episode.
Right.
But um, it's called like the Dave Lizewski Years Part or Book Two because they reissued it, like they re published it after Image got the rights, I guess,
Mm.
in 2018. So, but the original title was Hit Girl, and it was originally published between June 2012 and February 2013. The writer is Mark Miller, artist John Romita Jr., inker Tom Palmer, and the colorist is Dean White and Michael Kelleher, and the letterer is Chris Eliopoulos. So this story starts out with this costumed hero, seemingly inspired by Kick-Ass. I guess his name is Silver Beetle. And he's getting the snot kicked out of him by these gangster guys who want information on Kick-Ass, because they know that he killed the leader of, I guess, their family. I think it's like Genovese.
Hmm.
That's the crime family name, but this Silver Beetle guy doesn't know anything, so they just off him. Now, I did forget to say this, but this is like there's some more mature content in this book, mostly violence and language, so just fair warning there.
Right.
But like I'm not gonna show like anything too crazy with the slides, but pretty much like every other page has a lot of violence, so
Yeah.
so it's kind of hard to avoid. But anyway, so we cut to Mindy, and she is at her mom's house with her stepdad, and just kind of living a normal life, or so it seems. And her stepdad is apparently aware of her activities as Hit Girl, like well, what happened with, because he's a cop. I'm assuming that's how he knows. But he thinks that she's done being Hit Girl. So she's going off to school, trying to live a normal life, but these girls are very mean to her, and she's actually going to the same school as Dave now.
Right.
So she tells him like at lunch break all about the crime family, that they just took on the Genovese crime family, and that um, the main Don or boss or whatever, his brother Ralphie is now the head of the family, but he's in jail, but he pretty much owns the jail, and he still runs everything from inside prison. So she's still planning on being Hit Girl, and Hit Girl and Kick Ass are still gonna go and take on the remnants of this crime family. Well, it's not really remnants because they just have a new boss,
Mhm.
but Mindy later goes to visit her dad's grave. She is also bullied more at school, and there's this kind of funny line, even though it's kind of a sad moment where she's talking to her dad and says like, "I've killed all these people, I've shot people, I've choked people, even drowned somebody, but why can't I handle these bitches?" It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So then we cut to Ralphie, the new head of the crime family in prison, and it's basically just this scene with him talking to his subordinates about Kick Ass and what they're gonna do to catch him. And apparently, like they've gotten some information from Chris, but like they're not really sure if it's reliable because it seems like Chris might have kind of like lost it a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, with all the events of last book. And there's this kind of funny scene where you really see how much power he has, where he just has a whole dinner to himself in the
Yeah.
commissary.
Yeah.
He even says like, "Once I'm done, you can let everyone else in," you
Mhm.
know. And they even have like wine and like freshly baked bread for him. But in the next scene, we see Kick Ass going to Hit Girl and Big Daddy's lair, and Hit Girl kind of makes fun of him for bundling up in the cold. Uh, and she shows Kick Ass like their whole lair, all the gadgets and cars they have, and explains to him that they took all the money from all the criminals that they hit, and they gave half of it away to charity and kept the rest to upgrade all their gadgets and cars and
Mhm.
everything. And she basically swears Kick Ass in as like a superhero, uh, referencing Batman kind of having a little induction ceremony for Dick Grayson in the
Yeah.
comics.
Yeah.
But she also gets Dave to agree to. She says that she'll train Dave to be a better superhero as long as he trains her to be a better teenager, basically a normal teenager.
Mhm.
So then we cut to um, Chris kind of confronting his mom and just saying like, "Hi, I'm gonna go do crazy villain stuff now." There's not like a whole lot other reason why he's there but to be creepy. Um, so in their first training outing, Mindy and Chris dress up. I'm not really sure where they get all this stuff. I guess they use some of the money left over, but
Mhm.
they buy a bunch of expensive looking clothes and jewelry and go through a bad part of town just waiting to be robbed. And Mindy just kind of eggs Dave on while he's beating everyone up. And then we see that she's also training him how to break through how to swing from a building and break through windows to
Mhm.
make
Mhm.
an entrance basically, and showing him the proper way to do it and to tuck his head. And then they also they also go over a catchphrase
Oh yeah.
that he can say, and they like to say, like he says, "I don't know, how about game over, motherfuckers?" And he's like, "Not bad, but how about anyone order a knuckle sandwich?" And it's just like all these really dumb ones.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they also start working on assembling a superhero team.
Yes.
Um, just going through a bunch of people online because uh, Kick Ass and Hit Girl and Big Daddy kind of inspired a bunch of other
Mhm.
people to don costumes and become superheroes. So they're just kind of looking through them and seeing who could make a team. And then Dave basically just shows Mindy like how girls her age dress and like what movies they like, stuff like that.
Mhm.
But she's still getting picked on by mainly by this one girl. Her name's like Debbie or something. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, Hit Girl Mindy says something to her along the lines of like she's going to um, usurp her as like the alpha female in the friend group and like become friends with all her friends and stuff. We'll see how that turns out later. But then Mindy is back home. Her stepdad kind of explains to her that like her mom is kind of in a fragile state of mind after everything that happened with Big Daddy basically kidnapping Mindy to fight crime with him and all that, and so he's basically saying like, you know, you better not be doing any hit girl stuff, and she's like, oh no, of course not. But it turns out she actually slipped sleeping drug. Like she basically roofied her mom and her stepdad.
Yeah.
I think she even used like Rohypnol. And so they both pass out. So then she gets into her hit girl's outfit, to go fight crime. And Dave similarly lies to to his parents, saying, well, his dad and I guess his girlfriend, his dad's girlfriend. I'm not sure if it's like a stepmom, really. I don't remember if she was even in the.
No,
the
she
other
was.
book.
It was a joke. It was the one that he rescued from the pimp in the beginning of the book, because at the end they hooked up. So
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. So so that's them, and he lies and says that he's gonna hang out with the guys when he's really gonna do kick-ass stuff. So Kick-Ass and Hit Girl drive to this like Italian mob hangout restaurant, and it doesn't take very long, but the criminals realize that they've been set up because none of them actually called a meeting. But before they can leave, Kick-Ass swings through the window and starts beating the crap out of them. And it's going okay, but then he ends up hitting somebody on the head with and breaking his hand. And he starts to lose after that. But then all of a sudden, Hit Girl comes out of nowhere and just obliterates everyone with an automatic rifle, which Kick-Ass kind of balks at, and she's like, "Oh, sorry, I thought it was loaded with tranquilizers." And then I didn't include it here because it is kind of graphic, but there is one guy who survives, and she ends up like shooting him in the head and goes like, "Oh, whoop! I thought that was a tranquilizer too. My bad."
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. But then we cut to Chris, aka Red Mist, and he's gonna do his first supervillain act. So I don't know where he got this gun exactly, but he basically just walks into a convenience store and blows away the poor shop owner right in front of his two kids. But the gun needs a cooldown period, and he didn't realize that. So he can't. After he shoots the dad, he runs away with his goons, and the two sons chase after him. And before Chris can escape, he ends up running into two costumed superhero guys. And the sons call out for them to hold him there, so they do, and then they tackle Chris and beat the crap out of him. But then the cops show up before they can do really any real damage besides just roughing him up a bit.
Right.
But Chris is then taken. We're not really sure who this is yet. He's referred to as I think Uncle Vic by Chris, but he's obviously working for Chris's uncle, who is giving Chris a bunch of money and just wants him to be out of the city so he doesn't get hurt while they hunt down Kick-Ass and Hit Girl. And Chris says he's going to use all the money to go around the world like Bruce Wayne and like learn martial arts, how to fight and everything. But, then also come back and be supervillain. So, not as much Bruce Wayne. But then we see Mindy. She's used some of her mom's makeup and bought a bunch of trendy clothing to fit in more at school. But she still ends up being bullied by Debbie, who is a complete psycho. Like, as they get on the bus, she says something about, like, she has one attempted suicide under her belt, and she'll have Mindy cutting herself in, like, a week. Like, holy hell. But at school, Mindy talks to Dave and says they're gonna hit this Colombian cartel that night, and Dave says, like, well, I got a X-ray on my hand, and it's actually worse than we thought. I can't, do any crime fighting. I don't want to re-injure my hand or make it worse. So Hit Girl decides to just do things on her own. And she actually ends up confronting Debbie in the girls' bathroom and tases her. And then when Debbie wakes up, she finds that she's tied by her ankle from a building and being dangled there by
Hmm.
Mindy, who ends up dropping her from the building into a recycling truck, and Mindy basically says like she knows exactly when this truck shows up every day, and um, if Debbie doesn't stop bullying her as well as like let her into the friend group, then she's going to drop her again. But
Hmm.
before the truck shows up, so
Right.
not as soft a landing. Um, but oh yeah, and this I didn't mention this earlier, but Mindy's mom talked to the stepdad, saying that she heard that the cops are getting pressure from the
Right.
crime family because like a lot of the cops are corrupt and they're being bought out, and like a lot of the cops seem to be owned um, by the crime family. But the stepdad, what is his name? I keep
Is it
Marcus.
Marcus?
Marcus, yeah.
Yeah.
Marcus said that it wasn't true, just to allay her fears, I guess. But then the mom finds this envelope left for them, and it's got these three bullets in it, labeled "Mommy Bear, Daddy Bear, and Baby Bear." Obviously a threat. So
Hmm.
Marcus takes them to his boss. I'm not sure if he's like the captain or the chief or whatever, or lieutenant. I have no idea. But he takes them to his boss, it seems like. And it turns out that this guy is Uncle Vic, the guy that
Mm.
sent Chris on his way at the airport. So he's clearly working for the Genovese family.
Right.
And Marcus, like, doesn't really have any evidence, but he kind of comes right out and says, like, I know you're on their payroll. Like, I know who pays for your fancy suits and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, this doesn't really go anywhere, but because, he basically accuses him and he's like, stay away from my family, but, it doesn't um, really do anything. So, Hit Girl goes to take out this Colombian cartel. She was gonna go like the front door pretty much, but she noticed there were a bunch of girls. They were using a bunch of young girls I think, to cook the drugs.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so she ends up using a chimney instead, but she ends up falling down the chimney or the air vent. I'm not really, and she ends up um, crashing down, and obviously is discovered. And yeah, she's kind of in a pickle here, and that's where the first half of this wraps up.
Okay, so it picks back up. She's on the floor. All the gangsters are pointing guns at her. She pulls out a something. I didn't even know this was a thing. It might not actually be a real thing, but says it's a digital grenade, and she's like, "Yeah, it's got
Yeah,
30 seconds on here."
I think it's just C4. She calls it a digital grenade, but then she says that it's C4, I think.
Okay, so she's just making shit up, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Um, so yeah, she threatens them, and then she's like, "You better get running," but then she shoots them all down anyway.
Yeah.
And then the bomb is still poised to go off. She lets out all the girls go, but her her Marcus, her stepdad, is one of the cops
Hmm.
at the scene because I don't know if he got noted or like tipped off or something, but he's here against his supervisor's wishes.
Right.
And then the C4 goes off, and one of the survivors is like, "Yeah, there's a little ninja midget in there killing everybody."
Yeah.
And then Marcus is like, "Hang on, I know one of those." And then so there's this
Right.
kind of Ferris Bueller style, like a chase scene
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that.
where
Yeah.
yeah, they're trying to race back, and Mindy makes it back in just the nick of time, and Marcus is like pretty upset with her, and the mom's like, "What's happening?" And Marcus is like trying to play it off. It's just like, "Oh, she was just having a nightmare," and he's like, "I know what you did." She's like, "I didn't do
Mhm.
anything. I'm asleep."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then the next day at school, um, she meets up with Dave, whose hand is still broken, and now she's finally part of the girls' group because of that talk she had with Debbie.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then they're talking, and apparently she has like this notebook full of all the different ways she's gonna kill the guys because she has like the whole thing planned out. She's gonna kill each mob head like a different way.
Mm.
And then we got to Riker's Island with the uncle. I don't remember his name, but
Ralphie.
Ralph. Yeah, Ralphie, and he's torturing another superhero, just like at the beginning. but
Mm.
like I guess the same way, like they're not really connected to Kick-Ass or Hit Girl in any way, so there's not really anything that they
Right.
can do. So they off him, and then we cut to Chris, who's in Asia, I think, and he's like, "Oh, this is so cool." There's like this whole monologue about how he's like doing the Bruce Wayne thing, and he's gonna kill Kick-Ass, and it ends really funny. He's like, "Enjoy the DC relaunch while you can, because I'm gonna kill you." And it's like that was the new
Y-
52, like 10 years ago.
right. Yeah. They use a lot of commentary on comics and stuff in these books, which is fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we see through translation that these guys are actually just ripping him off because there's like he has a bunch of money, so we're just gonna kind of like pretend we know what we're doing because like they tell him to walk up this mountain and get a flower just like in Batman Begins,
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
but they're like, well, I mean, I saw it in a movie once, so I guess it'll work. Um, Yeah, and then so we cut back to Mindy's house, and Marcus is like locking up the windows and getting rid of all of her comic books and stuff like that because he's like he genuinely thinks that well, I mean, because she is, he thinks that she's out there like fighting crime and killing people and all that. And then yeah, the mom's still upset about the bullets. They get a ring at the door. Mindy answers, and then the gangsters like um have her have her at gunpoint, and then they knock out Marcus and they start threatening them, but it turns out that both Marcus and the mom are just asleep because Mindy roofied him again. Um,
Oh my gosh.
and then yeah, she just starts killing all the guys. And then there's the last guy, and she's like, "How am I gonna kill him?" So then she goes over to the neighbor's house. She's like, "Hey, can I borrow your sledgehammer?" And he's like, "Oh, sure. Just leave it in my garage when you're done with it." And so she just beats the shit out of the guy with the sledgehammer. And then she sees a vision of her dad, and she's like, "You're
Mm.
doing really good." And it's like, that's weird. So
Yeah.
this 12-year-old is like hallucinating, and that's cool.
That's healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then he gives her the idea to like just instead of like the plan to kill all the gangsters off over the next month or so, just to do it all in one go. So that's what these two panels are. I'm just going to skip over those really quick. But
Yeah.
if you want to
Right.
see what she did, you can pause the video and go back. But
Yeah. It's just
basically,
sick fucks.
yeah, she kills all of them, and then she's left with Ralphie. She has the three bullets, and she breaks
Mm.
into she gassed the prison, so everyone's asleep except for Ralphie, and then she killed his cellmate, and so she
Mm.
has the three bullets and she shoots him with it. And then as she's leaving, she passes a cell and she's like, "This is death row, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so she just kills everybody on death row.
Nice.
It's like, yeah, that's cool. Um, and then Mindy goes back to her house, and she promises her stepdad and mom that she's done doing the superhero stuff. But
Mm.
then there's like a closing monologue where it says like now more than ever it's more popular to be a superhero.
Mm.
And then we close out, well, not yet, but we meet up with Chris one more time, and he's training. And then again they're still ripping him off, but Chris is like getting onto it. He's like, "Okay, I know you're just ripping me off," and so then he just leaves kind of pissed. And then we see that Mindy is retired, but she's still like down to train Kick-Ass. She's just no longer into the superhero thing herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, the book ends with because at the beginning, I don't know if you mentioned this, but Chris forgot who Kick-Ass was, and so
Right. That's right.
the
Yeah.
book ends with him getting high, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember. It's Dave Lizewski." So,
Yeah.
and that is
Okay.
the
Yeah.
end of book 2. And so yeah, it's obviously setting up Kick-Ass 2, which is the third book in this series.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm assuming you hadn't read this
No,
before.
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What'd you think?
I thought it was good. It felt a lot like kind of like a like filler almost. I mean, it was good, but
Mm.
it seems like it's kind of doing its own thing and not like a direct
Yeah.
sequel to the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. And it felt very much just like kind of a setup for
Yes,
the
yes,
next. Which, yeah, if you're not aware, the second movie is based largely off of the third book, but a little off of this
yeah,
too.
yeah. Because there's
Um,
the uncle, and then the whole teen girl thing is also in the second movie as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the third book has like more like the team of superheroes that we
Yes.
see.
Yes.
But they made a lot of changes for the movie
Hmm.
adaptation. Like first off, like with this, Marcus is Mindy's stepdad instead of her dad's friend.
Yeah,
Like
because I
in the
think
movies.
the mom died in the movie, and so then
Right.
Marcus just adopts Mindy.
the original, like the fake origin in the comics, is the real
Right.
origin in the movies because they thought it would play better.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so she does live with Marcus in the second movie, but it's a different situation. And there's a few
Hmm.
other things that they change, like they kind of make it more of a in some ways like a teen drama in the
Yeah.
movie, where this it's not really.
I mean, there are
Uh,
some elements of it, but the
yeah,
focus isn't really on that in the book, whereas the movie puts
yeah.
more emphasis on it.
And it feels like the movie feels a little sanitized compared to
Yes.
the book for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, I thought it was good. Like
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
I do enjoy uncensored comics,
For sure.
which you
Yeah.
don't generally see from the bigger guys like
Hmm.
DC and Marvel. Image
Hmm.
kind of toes the line.
Right.
DC has some Black Label stuff that does a
Yeah.
little more of that. Like the new Riddler Year One series,
Mm.
that's Black Label, and that it doesn't like have any censoring or anything. Like there's
Mm.
plenty of
Okay.
violence, and they don't censor like the F bombs and stuff.
Sure. Sure.
But yeah, I thought this was fun. Like it wasn't anything like spectacular. Like man, it's
Yeah.
amazing. But it was fun. Like if you enjoy Kick Ass, and I did like that it focused more on Mindy.
Hmm.
And honestly, I feel like she's a little more interesting in the book than in
Okay.
the
Yeah.
movie. I think. I
Hmm.
think in the movie they lean into a lot more of her like trying to fit in as a teenager, and I think sometimes it almost goes too much,
Hmm.
where like her main goal being a vigilante takes the backseat a little bit, which doesn't really
Right.
happen in the book. At,
Right.
at one point, I didn't really say, but at one point she basically says like she's basically trying to fit in, and she's basically going to put on like a persona, like Bruce Wayne
Right.
is like that, a persona. So, but yeah, all that to say, it was a pretty fun read.
Yeah.
Wasn't anything too crazy, but just a fun time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anything else you had to say about this one?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. Just kind of like a
Yeah.
little detour between the two. If that's what it feels like
Yeah.
between the two main stories, it's kind of like a little side thing.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Do you know how long after this that Kick Ass Book 2 came out?
I
Or
don't know. I think
yeah,
I'm not sure.
yeah, I would assume pretty soon because I think didn't Kick Ass 2 come out in 2013, the movie?
Yes, and
And
because
yeah,
yeah, I mean obviously it was based on the comic, and I think that
yeah.
the comic book Kick-Ass 3, which is the fourth book, came out
Hmm.
shortly after the second movie did. So
Oh, okay.
I don't know exactly when Kick-Ass 2 came out, but somewhere around
I
that time
I'm
window.
guessing 2013 because this ends in 2013. This series ends
Right.
in 2013 or early 2013, and the movie came out in 2013. So
Yeah,
I feel like
probably.
they would have to come out around the same time.
Sure.
But yeah, to close things off, we're going to do our cultured picks where we talk about some recent comics we've been reading that are worthy of mentioning. So, what did you have this week?
This week I picked The World's Finest Teen Titans #1, and I was probably this is one of the probably my most anticipated books of the year because it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's focusing on the like original Teen Titans, which I think is really
Mm-hmm.
cool. And even if like I mean, there's a lot of if you're like a diehard Teen Titans fan, there's a lot here. There's a lot of like really deep cuts.
Yeah.
But even if you're not, it's a really good book. It has a really fun energy to it. There's the
Mm-hmm.
chemistry between the characters is really good. I'm really excited to see where
Nice.
it goes.
How new is this series?
It came out just a week ago.
Oh, okay. So it's
Yeah,
new. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
I noticed it doesn't have like the Dawn of DC label on it, which is interesting.
yeah. I'm not sure because the same writer Mike Wade was writing The World's Finest, which is sort of like a
Okay.
Batman Superman story, but it takes place
Right.
like when they were first starting out. So this is
Oh, okay.
similar to that. So it's not like in
So
the
it's kind of a
main.
prequel.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's probably why then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mhm.
For me this week, I kind of have two books I want to talk about briefly. They're kind of connected. So there's Punisher 11 and Daredevil 12. And they're kind of connected in that not only have these books crossed over a few times just in this series, but also they both kind of make a lot of changes to the
Mm,
character. Not like retconning, but just like changing their life. Like with Frank Castle, I've mentioned it in previous episodes with this series, but he is now like the fist of the hand, basically.
mhm.
But it turns out that he's slowly becoming possessed by the beast,
Yeah.
which the hand worships, and it seems like the beast is at least a demon, if not the devil himself.
Hmm.
And in this issue, Frank ends up fighting the Avengers because they're like, "Oh, you're going crazy, Frank." But um, it is interesting because this book and really this whole series kind of delves a bit into Frank's like psyche and just kind of
Mm.
showing that because in the past it seemed like he had a decent home life
Yeah.
after he came back from the war. He was just obviously very um, haunted by everything that happened when he was
Hmm.
away. But in these books, they kind of show that Frank and his wife didn't really have the best relationship after he came back because he kept pretending he was like pulling night shifts, but he was actually going and like watching executions like
Mm.
at prisons, stuff like that, and getting into bar fights, things like that. So it seems like he really wasn't content unless he was fighting.
Right.
And apparently, like this book even reveals that the day that they got shot in the park, she actually told Frank that she wanted a divorce.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
I feel like that's kind of a big thing for like his origin.
Right.
And it's kind of interesting because like even though Punisher is a psycho, at this point, because he's basically like he's still killing criminals, but he just has a lot more power now. And now that he's being possessed by the beast, he's like super powered.
Hmm.
Um, but the way it's written, even though Frank is doing all this crazy stuff, and he's fighting the Avengers, you do kind of root for him.
Sure.
The way it's written, so it was written pretty well in that respect. And like the
Nice.
Avengers almost come off as being like annoyingly sanctimonious.
Mm.
And it's kind of funny because in this same Daredevil run, which I think is the issue before this, but the Avengers actually face down Daredevil as well,
Hmm.
and they basically destroy the hand. And a lot of that is because, or not the hand, I think it's called the Fist, which is like the anti-hand basically that Daredevil and Elektra are leading. But it's because Daredevil has done some questionable things, but like his motivation is basically like this system is broken, and you know, like we're not gonna fix it, so we kind of have to work outside the rules,
Right.
um, especially to take down the hand. But in this issue, like all of the hand has been disbanded. Basically, Elektra was arrested because she was framed by the hand for killing the president, and Daredevil basically threatened the people that got them in prison until they released her. But in this case, he plans on killing himself so that he'll end up going to the beast's like home in hell to kill it.
Mm.
And Elektra tries to stop him, but she doesn't, and he does kill himself. But it ends in a really interesting way. Like he sees his dad, and seemingly in hell, but he like gets this crazy white suit, and
Mm.
they kind of reveal that. Then they haven't really said exactly how yet, but he's basically like the fist of God now.
Ah.
So yeah, that should be really interesting. I'm kind of curious to see what the hell they do with that.
Mm.
Um, but I feel like that's really interesting because he's one of the few like overtly religious superheroes.
Sure.
So to kind and he like fight in the beast is like a demon. So
Hmm. Hmm.
kind of going down that route could be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I'm sure like eventually he's gonna go back to being normal Daredevil,
Of
but
course.
yeah, that's how it always goes. But
Yeah.
yeah, that is our episode this week. Thanks so much for joining us. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. And yeah, check out our new social media accounts. If you would like to check out the Cultured Nerd and their Instagram socials, YouTube, all that stuff, you can use the QR code on the bottom left. If you would like to check out Casual Experts, our other brand, we have our own YouTube channel, podcast, and social media. You can use the QR code on the bottom right. I have been your host, Michael Malillo. My co host is Luke S.
Yep.
Thank you so much to all of our Patreon supporters: Wesley H., Mitch S., Connor Y., Anna M., Oscar B., Craig L., and Salib K. If you would like to support us so we can keep bringing you more great content, check us out on patreon.com/theculturednerd. And if you would like to support our show, you can look for our show specific tier on that page. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Peace.